are back with another edition of the Ad Podcast. Thanks for joining us late on a Friday. Have an old friend. Lee Tran is the founder of Stiletto Collective. Prior, she was a pivotal part of building the agency Proof Advertising in Austin, Texas, where we actually met, I want to say, 12 or 13 years ago. And she has been honored as one of Ad Age's Women to Watch and Campaign 40 over 40. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Lee.
Thank you for having me, Dylan.
Yeah,
I can't believe it's been 12, 13 years.
Totally. So, let's maybe just kick it off with your origin story. So, if you could tell me, a little bit about where you grew up, where'd you go to school, and how'd you get into the advertising industry?
Okay, origin story. I went to high school in Houston, Texas,
Nice.
basically elementary to high school. Decided that I wanted to explore other places. I knew I wanted to be in communications. Actually, I thought I was going to be a journalism major. Back in the day, I had to go to the library, figure out what good colleges, university existed, and then found one in Boston, Massachusetts. So I had my sight set out for that and made it happen, and studied journalism at first and art history, and then quickly pivoted to advertising and communications. And I'm one of those rare people that doing what I studied and still love it. So that was Boston. We had a great internship program, a campus in LA. So my last year was in LA, and that's
Oh, wow.
I interned at BBDO back in the day when they had a West Coast headquarter. So part of Omnicom, and at that time, BBDO had amazing clients like Apple, MGM Studios, and that's really where I cut my teeth in terms of digital. There was no digital advertising back in the day, and I remember being with my mentors, sitting in the back, just listening to an MGM planning meeting, and the execs were pretty upset that the agency didn't have anything related to the internet on the plan. So after that meeting, they assembled a bunch of young people, heads of IT, and quickly formulated an internet department. So that's my origin story. I will say that I'm classically trained in advertising. When I went to school at Emerson College, advertising meant you studied every discipline. You had to learn Photoshop, creative, what that meant, media, statistics, account strategy, the history of advertising. But while I was classically trained, I started in digital back before, digital was a thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like you said, it's rare to meet people in our profession that actually studied advertising. And it's even cooler to hear about programs where you really get like fully exposed to all the different areas of it. So, I mean, I feel like so many people fall into it. So to have an opportunity to kind of sample and get a basic proficiency in everything and then really figure out what you're excited about. That seems like a great way to go for kids who actually know what they want to do or know that they may want to get involved in the industry.
And not to keep plugging my alma mater at all, because that wasn't my intent.
I
But
love it. Let's go.
Emerson College, I'm pretty sure they still do this, but what was great and why I gravitated towards it was almost like a trade school. There really weren't, PhD professors. It was, we had them, but more so it was adjunct professors. It was people in the business. So I remember our creative track was actually taught by a creative director at McCann at the time that worked on Coca-Cola, and he would fly into Boston and kind of lecture on creativity. So having really more people in the business doing it at that time, I think, was really insightful for me, and more inspiring, and kind of kept me going, seeing how they were accomplishing what they did and actually bringing in kind of the battle stories, the good, the bad, the ugly.
That's awesome. And I've also heard of some of the schools that have more dedicated advertising departments. They build what's called like a student agency, and then they go out and do work for potential clients or alumni and stuff like that. Did you have an opportunity to do anything like that while you're in school?
Yep, the first campaign I got to work on, and actually at that time I was slotted by my professor in the creative department, was for the American Red Cross. So
Oh, very
that
cool.
was our first campaign, and I still remember it. Still have a lot of great friends that were on that agency team, and they're all doing different things. Some have tapped out of the business, but a lot of them are still doing advertising.
Very cool. So, what came next after BBDO?
After BBDO, I kept doing the holding company thing. After BBDO was Gray. And what was great about Gray, it was still Gray LA, but Gray LA was creating an offshoot called Gray Entertainment, really focused in on, because we were based in LA, really more
Mhm,
entertainment type clients. So there we were working a lot with Warner Brothers, so the studio, the TV, back in the day, DVD collections,
mhm.
um, and other smaller brands, but it was really kind of creating this new entity for Gray. And there's a pattern of that, I think, in my career. After Gray, it was McCann Erickson.
Mhm.
So McCann Erickson back in the day had a Houston headquarters, and it was time for me to move from LA back home to where I was from. So I headed up the digital department there. And after that, I got a referral to work at a mid-sized independent agency in Texas, and that started my foray into the independent life versus the holding companies, which is night and day. And I went from basically an agency that was pretty big at the time in Houston, um, and they wanted to create a digital offshoot. So I was in charge of that, and we created a digital offshoot, had separate clients from the main agency, try to really educate old clients into the new world. Um, and then from there, went to kind of help put on a map a small independent agency, which was my last gig. So kind of went
Nice.
really big, holding companies all the way down to small independents. And at that agency, when we first started, we had acquired a smaller agency, and it was around maybe 20, 30 people. At the peak of my journey there, helping to put that on the map, I think we were around 120.
Wow,
So
that's a lot of
yeah,
growth.
it was a lot of growth. It was fun to see that, but I think I realized even then that I prefer working at more of a close-knit, smaller boutique agency or vibe, and that's what I'm doing today.
I love that. So, what was the biggest culture shock from going to these like monumental names, these holding company legacy agencies that everybody in the industry has heard of, down to a boutique?
I think the biggest thing is always process. So
Hmm.
at the biggest companies, everyone had a specific task, and it was you learned your role, and there was a process, and that was sort of your part of the machine. Um, and you know, if something went wrong, it was always back to like, did you follow the process? When you start
Mm,
working at smaller, mid-size, small agencies, it's the funny thing where I think what makes it great is being nimble, kind of the
hmm.
mid-size and small versus having all this process. But a lot of the smalls and the mid-size want to start to create processes, which when you hit that point, I think that's what do you want to be when I grow up? Because I believe I believe that a lot of process can really kill what we
Mm,
try to do as a business, which is kind of create new things, new ideas that the best ones
yeah,
hadn't been done before, so there is no process for it.
yeah,
So
that's interesting. Yeah, it's hard to be creative when you're like feel like you're like a cog in a wheel or something like that.
yep,
That's
yep.
interesting. So it was really the freedom of having smaller, nimble teams that you loved, and stayed and built that agency for quite a long time. Also, did a lot of work in the travel and hospitality space.
Yep.
Do you feel like that kind of started to move you into the direction of having a bit of a speciality in hospitality? I know you work with a lot of hospitality clients again at Stiletto. What do you think as far
Yeah,
as that element?
there are some businesses, some agencies that only do one category or specialize. I don't gravitate towards that. Sometimes I just find that it's that classic, do you have that experience question? And then you just naturally
Mm,
get more of that. But I actually prefer having a variety of clients and not being in any one category. But yes, there are times in my career where I've been heavy, travel, destination, hotels. But I like it all and I like the challenge. That's why I think the one time I went client side, it drove me a little nuts because that's all you did day in and day out versus in the agency life, if you're fortunate, you're not only working on one client, but you get to work on many categories. Right now at Stiletto, we do have some travel clients, but I would even call it more like we've oddly enough just landed clients that are in more of the premium set or
mm.
luxury mindset, or better for you health and wellness mindset. So yeah, I think that's sort of, and beverage, food and drink, I think is just where I'm seeing that we're, again, just organically, we haven't tried to pursue that category per se, but
Yeah, that's interesting. They say what is it like two clients is a conflict, three is a specialty, right? But
it's, if someone can show me how that actually works, like I've been in so many new business pitches, especially in the past, where you look at the conflicted clients, and you're like, how is that even on this list? But then you have agencies that are specialty agencies, and they're invited. So you're like, how do they get out of that? And I think one of the things that there's trade secrets, obviously, have put different teams, different entities, but in the end, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that a lot of times people they mistake Stiletto Collective as being like a shoe company or a fashion company,
Yeah. Hmm.
or only, an agency that works with female-oriented brands, or an agency that only hires females. So, and I
Hmm.
could definitely see why, but for me, I would prefer, and all of our clients so far have been referrals. So it's, again, just really fascinating to see how, our clients have evolved to what they are, organically.
Yeah, so let's jump into Stiletto Collective. So you were at that mid-size agency for quite a while. That's where we met. You were one of the top leaders there. Like you said, you grew it over 4x. What gave you the idea to, or what created the right environment for you to decide to strike it on your own?
The first one was, unfortunately, but fortunately, COVID really helped break down
Mm,
barriers, in terms of where talent can be based, and what a quote office looks like. Um, so that really helped. And I've always wanted to own my own company. And then my son actually kind of kicked me in the butt. He's known that I've always wanted this, and he graduated college during COVID, and he got a job, and he was fine. And it was, Mom, it's like now or never. And then there was a moment where just the right signs happened. And I didn't really have a game plan or a business plan or a marketing plan. It just felt really right to tag out of what I was in and just, dive deep into what I wanted to build. So I did
I
it.
love it.
Took
Yeah,
a little
so
nudge
awesome.
from your kid, but
Well, I hope my kids are that insightful as they continue to grow up. That's awesome. All right. So, yeah, tell me about early days. What was the first year like? Did it go as fast as you wanted it to? Was it scary? Like, what was the first year like?
it happened really fast.
Mm,
I made a decision to leave. I didn't really have my game plan other than I thought I deserved a sabbatical. So I was thinking that I was gonna have a nice little break and just really think about the agency I wanted to create and the brand and build a brand book and come up with like a, you know, just come up with a game plan. And
Yeah, you thought you were gonna chill out and work on the business strategy part a little bit.
yes, just
Hmm.
100% did not happen that way. As soon as word got out that I had left, a lot of old clients, old colleagues, just were like, what? It was like a shock to people who knew me. Um, and, I think one of the first clients that reached out, one of the first potential clients was actually somebody in my previous life we had pitched. We didn't win
Mm,
it. Another agency in town, or actually in Dallas, won it, but he remembered me during the pitch. So he was going through a career change around the same time I was leaving and starting my own company. And, he was just wanting the skinny, and thought it didn't work then, but it might work now, and it did. So
that's great.
a lot of, yeah, and the best part about him was, like, we never worked together, so it was almost like first impression did really count. Um, and what has been really great about owning your own business is just, it's you get to call the shots. But for me, it's all about transparency. When we talked, I was like, I'm happy to meet you and meet other people, but we just started a lot. Yeah, I don't, my capabilities presentation is going to be stuff from my past, because we literally just started. And he was happy to almost like help, in that way. And so then from there, like, that was the first email, LinkedIn email, phone call, uh, in-person meeting. I literally, my creative partner, asked for, like, I need a template, a logo, I need a design, I need a look feel, I need to think about my philosophy. And he was the first person we presented to, but he knew, where we were. And after that, it was just a succession of, of people reaching out, wanting to work. And knock on wood, it's still been that way. I'm used to growing up from the holding companies to helping, put a small agency on the map, to really, pitching, you know, business, and understanding that the first guarantee in our business is that you lose business. So
Mm,
new business and pitching was very important. But so far, Stiletto Collective, every client has been a referral. So yeah,
wow, that's
knock on wood.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm grateful that I haven't had to complete a really detailed RFP, and then spend a lot of time knowing that there could be 10 or 5 other people, and just that whole courtship. We haven't had to do that. So I feel, again, really lucky.
yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm sure that day is coming as you continue to scale. But I don't know. A lot of agency leaders that I'm talking to these days, especially on the indie side, some of them have a philosophy that they're not going to engage in kind of the traditional, the old ways anymore, where it's like the work with the agency consultant, get brought in for like this initial RFI, and then you get weeded down to this, kind of like Donald Trump apprentice game of like going into the boardroom and pitching, and or whether it's on Zoom or whatever. Like I feel like it's kind of something as old as the industry in some ways, and I do love the excitement of it sometimes, but it doesn't really feel like it's the most gratifying way to do new business. I feel like you're constantly burning out your best people, because those are the people that you're like crowdsourcing to work for free essentially on these ideas. In 13 years I've only got paid to pitch once. And it doesn't, I don't know, I'm split, I guess. Like in some ways I think it's not very productive, but then there's also this like kind of legacy Don Draper days, like kind of
No,
like
I mean, people who knew me knew that I love new business the most. I mean, I had to
oh
work on
wow.
existing clients and new business, and it was definitely something you get addicted to, adrenaline. I'm competitive, so back in the day, I definitely enjoyed it. But in my new era, in my new life, I think I cleared that fence, and I think I'm on the side of, like, I don't want us to have to go through that. Um, we haven't had to, and it's kind of nice to not have to. So I think I'm on the side of if I do get one, it's got to be a really interesting client or really solid connection for me to want to pursue it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about the branding of the agency because I'm a big fan of like the marketing of marketing. I love, the idea of agencies drinking their own Kool-Aid and kind of showing their capabilities through the marketing that they do for themselves. So you mentioned Stiletto Collective in your mind has caused occasionally some confusion in the marketplace. Stiletto, famously named after the high heel shoe, and then also this idea of like the female, not only female led and owned agency, but the female exclusively staffed agency. I met at one time I was looking through Village's stuff when I was in the influencer marketing space and just kind of going through and prospecting people. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a 150-person agency with all females. Like, how is that even legal? First of all, but all good. I'm not going to hate on it. But, you mentioned that those are a couple of misconceptions with the branding. What was the intention with the branding, and how have you been able to kind of correct a couple of those, like those maybe directions that the brand, because you don't own your brand, it goes in the direction of the people who consume it and experience it, right?
Yes. So, people who know me know that I have a high level of Carrie Bradshaw love of shoes.
Nice, let's
So,
go.
it's just a fun fact that I could wear a shoe a day and not wear the same pair of shoes. So I
That's
have an
awesome.
obscene collection of shoes. And back in the day too, when there was more of going to the office every day, people would joke, is Lee coming to the meeting? Because I was always, 5 minutes behind, running from one meeting to the next, and the joke was, "Oh, you'll heal her coming," because I was always wearing, actually, and very proud that I could run in high heel shoes.
Yeah, let's
So that's
go.
just a fun fact. But
You're like you're like sneaker culture for women.
yes, yes, yes. I will
So
say the
good.
negative thing about COVID was being on Zoom calls. I've lost a little bit of that ability. So
Mhm.
give and take. So that's
Sure.
the fun fact. But for me, it was also a fun way to, women owned. It's a nod to being a woman owned agency. If someone's looking for that, and I love puns. So, or just kind of keeping true to the vibe of what Stiletto Collective is. It's also a nod to just women elevating women, or just
Mm,
being elevated, just feeling, that you can rise up. I used to always also wear high heel shoes because I'm 5'2", and for some reason, you know, psychologically, I felt more seen when I was in a higher pair of shoes than not. Um,
hmm
so that's the stiletto part. Collective was also intentional. There are hundreds of thousands of agencies, and for me, collective was intentional in that I mentioned I was an art history minor, but I liked the idea of, the, you know, Ernest Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and Picasso meeting up at a cafe in Paris and really kind of just talking about, how to push things and see things differently, or musicians coming together. And I like the idea of like a cooperative. So
mm,
thinking about just the business savvy side of it, with people being comfortable working from home, hiring talent anywhere. The idea of the collective is I wanted to create 100% freelance contract network. But the
mm,
the stipulation was that to be a part of it, it wasn't that, we're a talent site for contractors and freelancers. We don't go to them. You had to be sort of a two degree separation within the collective. So you had to come, just like clients, you had to be referred, or I would have had to
mm.
personally worked with you or have known you. So the idea of just having a cooperative of talent, of freelancers and contractors. And for me, a lot of people in the advertising business, they're just creative souls, creative spirits. They like to paint, they like to write books, they have other interests. Advertising is just kind of a day job. So my idea was just the idea of the cooperative is to allow people to just the makers and the doers just to come and go. So here's a project, here's a timeline. It could be multiple years, it could be 2 months. Are you in or are you out? Do you have passion for it? So that was again the idea is to create this cooperative where people can come and go. But I will
I love.
say the we're still doing that pretty much. But last year we've kind of evolved. I think for some generations, some people, it's important to kind of have some structure and stability. So we
Mm.
have opened it up to the right talent, looking at more of a traditional sort of salaried full-time offering. But that was just brand spanking new just last year.
Wow. And is that mainly for like the younger junior folks? Are you thinking about that kind of want that more stability? I feel like that's kind of the trend is like, I'm in my 40s, so I'm doing the freelance thing for the first time, 13 years in the industry. But, I had my first employee this summer. And I was like, okay, so do you want, a flexible role or what are you looking for? And she's like, no, I want to be in the office 5 days a week. I want to start at 8 in the morning and leave at 5. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
Gen Z is like after like this, like they're like a lot of Gen Zs are kind of not into this whole, millennial work from home freedom to like be a digital nomad and all that. Like they want mentorship, structure, face to face.
Yes, I don't want to stereotype generations, but
Of course,
yeah,
yeah.
it was definitely hearing, there was a talent that was again the 2 degree thing. There was a talent that was recommended, and after a few calls, that was sort of the sense that I had. But she was definitely she wasn't senior, but had a lot of great experience. But she graduated during, she basically started her career during COVID. So she was very comfortable with
Mm,
that. So didn't necessarily need to come into the office, but there were certain things, certain traditional structures that I think are appealing um, for Gen Z.
yeah, no, I love that. All right, I want to go back to the woman-owned and woman-elevated component for a minute. Something that I've spent a lot of time harping because I worked for a female-owned agency for 8 years. One of the statistics that I found is that of Fortune 5,000 clients, as many CMOs are women, or many marketing leaders are women. Only 1% of agencies that are hired by the Fortune 5,000 are actually women owned. So why do you think there's such this like, you see all this kind of celebration of like female empowerment on LinkedIn and like female collectives and these things, but then when you actually look at the hiring of female owned agencies, it's, off the charts abysmal. Any comment on that and ways that we could improve it?
Uh, that's a loaded question. I don't know how to. I don't know how to personally improve the situation, but it was important for me to be women owned. I can only speak from my experience. So, I mean, I've been doing this for almost like 3 decades, and whether it was the big holding companies or down to the small agencies, there's definitely working for the man has a lot of different connotations. But I think in certain situations you do need a female perspective, whether it is a certain type of business or it's actually how to maybe even just a female voice to round out, um, you know, company culture. So to me, I definitely saw a need for that in a lot of different situations. I hate to say, I won't name names either, but looking for, landing a new client that's really big and then trying to hire a team because you don't have the team, even though you said you had a team. And then really quick trying to find talent and then most people unanimously feeling like this one particular talent was great, and then hearing maybe a male leader say, "But did you see? I think she's pregnant." You know, um,
Mm,
so there are little nuances like that. Well, I say little. There are nuances like that where I feel as a woman and as a mother, it definitely struck wrong. Um, so to change that, I definitely felt like I needed to, try to be a woman-owned agency and just have that be an option and a perspective for not just clients, but for employees. Another idea that I had about the cooperative was in the ad business, a lot of people tap out because, it's really expensive to raise kids. And so a lot of
mhm.
talent would just say they're not coming back and working at the agency. And oftentimes, a lot of agencies want people to be full time. So the idea of the cooperative was to really try to make make an ad agency um, culture where, again, you could come in and out based off of what we need in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of being able to accommodate for that life stage. Going back to my experience, my CEO over the 8 years that we worked together, she took 3 6-month maternity leaves as the CEO. And I mean, like full unplug. Like I was left in charge of the agency, sometimes with other senior leaders, kind of in a dual leadership role depending on what the year was. And she fully unplugged. We maybe met once a month to review financials, and that was pretty much it. And what an amazing experience for her to be able to do that. Um, a lot of trust in her team. And I think that was what I appreciated most about working for a female leader was that it felt, like definitely I knew who was in charge, but I also felt like it was like a real partnership. Like we partnered in growing the business. And to her credit, like I mean, at my prior agency where you and I met, I used to have salary negotiations with the CEO where like, we would wrestle in the boardroom, and I would like be walking for the door with my stuff, basically saying that I was never coming back. And we ended up working out all those salary negotiations, but the way that it was handled, I always got more money and treated them more ruthless and more cutthroat. And with my last agency that was owned by the woman, I did not leverage her or shop an offer. I couldn't because she treated me too fairly and too much like a partner. I never asked for a raise for the all 8 years. I just made my raises and commissions and bonuses and things like that because I just didn't feel like I didn't have it in me to negotiate with her the way that I would negotiate with men. Not was because she was a woman, but because how well she treated me as like a real partner, I think.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And so there is a difference. And again, I'm not saying that there's a like there's a problem with the other gender, but in my career too, just if I were to look back, and you kind of just learn from the things that bothered you, but there definitely is sexism. I remember
Hmm.
one time being in a meeting where you know somebody who is in a leadership role, sometimes just sarcastic, but kind of place and time was off, but said in a new business meeting, oh, just jokingly, supposedly, but oh, we only bring her because she wears short skirts. Mind you, I don't wear like short
Hmm.
skirts, but it was a comment that was said. And you know I think that women just kind of what you were saying, there's a certain respect that is just innate, I feel like. Uh, and yeah, I just wanted to create a space where if you've ever experienced that, this could be an option for you. So
Very cool. I want to talk about that idea of fractional talent with female talent who have left the industry because of their choice to have a family. which shouldn't have to be a choice. I totally agree with you. And I think that's one definite benefit of this kind of new freelance, flexible culture that COVID has created, or in its wake at least. My wife was an agency person at Omnicom as well in the early days in Los Angeles, probably around the time that you were there, because you talked about DVDs. She was in-house at Warner Brothers on the home video department, and then at an Omnicom agency called Russ Reed, which was the nonprofit agency that serviced mostly food banks in Texas, actually, were her big clients. But yeah, when by the time we got around to starting our family, she kind of looked at the culture and what her options were, and she decided, better to drop out than try and make it work. And I'm very grateful, and I'm sure she is, that she was able to spend so much time with our 3 kids as they grew up. But now she's with me at our little fractional, situation. She handles all my bookkeeping and kind of is the COO and the budgeting person. But, I think she would have loved an option that would have let her stay in the game, throughout that entire process versus like totally checking out. And I imagine, like, for you, you probably get way better talent, way more qualified talent, probably at less cost than it would be to employ them full time. So how has that strategy allowed you to have a bit of a superpower of like getting that talent that is really appreciative of that type of flexibility?
Yeah, I think when it comes to talent, I'm very serious about it's a 2 degree of separation. So you had to know me or my creative partner, and then it kind of goes from there. But similar to what you said about your previous boss, I think as a business where we're allowed to be more competitive in pricing is because we don't have like an office space. Um,
Mm,
because we are freelance and contract, we definitely can provide our insurance, but for the most part, a lot of people come in having their own. So
mhm.
it's really more of overhead. But just like you, I want to pay the talent what they believe. If it makes sense, if the math makes sense, I'm not gonna haggle over it. Um, so it's and being in our business, I think that I'm a pretty good negotiator, but on that front, that's not what I want to negotiate.
Mm,
So for, like one example I have, and kind of going back to, even though we're still a collective, it's not that we only hire females, but we had a travel and hospitality client, and we were already doing work, but I knew that we'd be needing a little bit more work. So I personally went to school with this this gentleman, who has worked at all the big agencies, Saatchi, and freelances for Hilton, and he is his own copywriting entity. He has his own LLC. Reached out to him because he created it because he and his wife had a baby, and they just wanted they wanted to be present with their daughter. So I knew that about him and reached out to him and said, hey, we have this project, you have the right background, maybe we could see if this could work out, and shook hands and off we went. But that's one little example. There's so many more like that, where again, for me, it's not about trying to haggle the talent. It's more about, I think I have a project someone might be great for. If they're interested, let's see if we can make this work.
yeah, no, that's cool. I think there's also like something happening with kind of the age of freelance talent. I don't know. Like you said, I don't like to make generalizations either, but I've been in the industry for 13 years in 2 roles, one for 5, one for 7. And this time around, I didn't go like, running to a full-time role, but it was all fractional freelance kind of part-time opportunities that were finding me. I'm only 42, but ageism is kind of popping up even earlier and earlier these days. I don't want to blame it on that. I probably could find a full-time job if I wanted to, but I don't know. I have this chip on my shoulder that I like don't look for jobs. I like jobs to look for me. I don't know
No,
why.
I can empathize with that.
Mhm.
I It's funny when I get reach outs from recruiters. I'm like, I haven't done a resume and I can't even remember when. And I'm definitely not interested, I think, in a full-time job, and I'm liking what I'm doing, but it's really, thank you. Thank you for asking. But yeah, the idea of fractional, I definitely know. We are working with a client right now, and they're somewhat they're somewhat new-ish. So they hired a fractional CMO, or interim CMO. And I think she and her husband were in a state of, she's around my age, uh, of, is it time to retire? What should we do? And then she was doing this interim or fractional CMO work. And she's just phenomenal. I love her. And of course, the company was like, we want to hire you full time. Please come full time. And she accepted. But there are moments where she's like, oh, I don't know what I got myself into. I kind of was just thinking this was, uh, so I hear what you're saying. I think what with Floto Collective, the idea of the collective, the cooperative side, which I hope we can maintain for the next 5 years, is, um, you know, I think we've done our time. I think we know what's required, but we also know the flip side of it. The rewards that we've been able to have, and just also valuing our time away from the work and the grind. And that helps fuel being better and more refreshed and having more creative ideas. So I think we know what that balance is. So it's really hard to go back.
Oh yeah. No, once you've you know, just the tax implication alone of being a business owner versus a W-2 employee is hard to ever think about doing it again. But
You're right.
all right. So your agency blends creativity and data across the customer journey. Can you share an example of a campaign where that mix really elevated the result? So why is it, what is your kind of take with, like, I guess the quant side and the creative side, and how do you guys match that? Because some agencies, I feel like, are still in this place where they're just like, we create big ideas and we win statues, and the data is for other people. That's for media people. That's for strategy people. That's not for us. And then I think other agencies are really, in the age of AI and being able to synthesize large amounts of data, in moments. I think they're really looking to the data for the insight more often now. So how are you guys approaching it?
Um, I definitely think that I've had a lot of great debates and conversations about data with especially more creative driven um, folks. But I think where we're at now is, if if we have the right balance of clients that understand the full funnel, the customer journey, and we can find ways that technology can help us scale. That's the idea of blending creativity and data around the journey. And so I think one example for me is Rambler sparkling water.
Mm.
So it's a brand. Do you know it?
I feel like I've heard of it. Are they Texas based?
Yeah, they're Austin based. Yep.
Okay, killer. Yeah, yeah. I must have
Yeah.
seen it like on like a South by Southwest, or out there on a
ACL.
business
Yeah, we're
trip
a
or something. Yeah.
sponsor. Yep.
Oh,
But
sick.
Rambler is an Austin-based company. They launched in 2018. So they were 4 years old when they came to us. They were on the like early cusp of basically being at this place of being able to say they're a national brand today, um, particularly with e-commerce, but just with their retail distribution. But basically, to get from being a kind of young CPG brand in Austin to where they are today, What we had to do was really kind of look at, we weren't just trying to be a good CPG product. We were trying to be a lifestyle. And if you think
Mm.
about a lot of great brands from Austin, like Yeti, there, it's really creating a lifestyle. And so that was really important. And so lifestyle brands really need to tell a story. And so it is that blending of creativity and data and connecting to the consumers. And for us, when we think about the affinities that we wanted to surround ourselves on, Rambler sparkling water, it's the idea of trying to evoke people, rambling and taking adventures and getting out there. And so affinities that we try to center around were outdoor adventures, music, entertainment. And those are sometimes different sort of audience sets. So what we were able to do is we also knew that our organic social was important. So creating a lot of the right organic content, we would see through data, whether you trust social media platforms data, but we would see what was engaging, and we would take the most engaging content and actually turn that social content into connected TV video, into digital ads, into mobile ads, into audio ads. So it was a iterative process where we would start learning in organic, take what worked there, put it out there in the world. And it wasn't trying to take one idea and resizing it to all the different channels. It was taking different content, different audiences, and reiterating it, across different channels. So that was, to me, how we were able to really connect and move people. And then for us, it was really important to just track engagement, of course, but we had retail rebate programs. We had a need to want to understand, we're a Texas-based brand, how well we were received outside of Texas. So we had brand lift studies. So we had like the retail data points, we had the brand data points, and then of course we had just the engagement data points. But all those were really important. And I think what made it fun was, a lot of creatives can come up with great organic content. I think they do like those vanity metrics. How many views did I get? How many likes did I get? Did people comment? What did they say? So that was kind of a great sort of new way of like focus grouping an idea and then taking that and then turning it into, again, other forms of advertising.
Yeah, I love that. You basically, my biggest takeaway from the Possible show in Miami this year is, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's very controversial, but he just said exactly what you guys did on your strategy, which is if you're not using organic social as your proving ground, if you're not doing everything there first, if you're not spending 20% of your total marketing budget on organic social, then you're just creating stuff that people don't want to see. And everything should be organic social first. And every strategy you have should be based on what performs. Like, why would you create content in a vacuum when you have a proving ground now via both the algorithm and your owned audience, where you can test thousands of theses and different versions, and you have this great playground of which you can essentially laboratory things in the real world, and every once in a while have a video go viral or something like that. Like, why wouldn't
Right.
you do that? So I love I haven't heard many marketers or agencies outside of Gary mentioning that, so it's super exciting to hear that like you're already doing that. It doesn't surprise me.
Thank you.
Very cool. All right. You know, Many agencies struggle with scale, especially in the early days. You've been able to do this mainly through the freelance collective that you've essentially built. But scaling even with freelancers and project based, it's like it's one thing because like you can kind of flex up and down, and there's no real issue with losing people, like because you don't have to worry about like folks that are on salary and then they like you know, then you lose a client. What do you do with them, and this and that. But one thing that I've noticed that was kind of hard when we were working with freelancers is two things. Sometimes they're not available, right? It's like you get this great person, they do this great pitch, and then like you win the business 3 months later and they're not available anymore.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you bring them in for a small project, like they meet the client, they gel, and then they, you know, have to peel off onto something else. So with kind of like the mercenary culture of freelancers, like how do you keep continuity, like both from like a client perspective, like you know, like almost like an accounts perspective, or are you essentially like the accounts guru and you're like the face of everything with the clients? Or like tell me a little bit about, you know, how do you scale with this in this brave new world of like freelance staff?
Yes. There's definitely always, you maybe there's a talent you have in mind for a project or a client that may not be available. So that definitely is the worrisome part. But, for me, how we stay fresh or nimble is it just goes back to being really selective with our people. And by that, I mean, we're really rigorous on the 2 degrees. Um,
Mm,
again, I mean, obviously, I was hired before, and people put together resumes, and I totally understand what job hunting is. But a lot of talent that you might go through the interview process might just interview well, but be horrible.
oh,
Um,
sales is
you
the
know,
worst when it comes to
yeah,
that.
right. So, uh, how we scale is really just being committed to the 2 degrees. I'd say between my creative partner and me. Um, and so if I think about sort of advertising, there's creativity and content, and there's on the other side, there's the consumers, um, and then that's really it. We're trying to help the brand kind of do those three things: create content, be creative, and connect to consumers. So I think kind of maybe it's our age, but between my creative partner and I, we just have worked with so many different people over the course of our um, careers, that it's easy to kind of think about, who might be available. So it is just having that Rolodex and having that years of experience that we can tap into people that we know. And I think for us, the way we are able to grow is that when we bring in this 2 degree of talent, clients can see the rapport. Clients can see that we trust each other, that we've worked together before. It's very apparent. And then when we're actually doing the work, we all trust each other. Um, so it's hopefully we can keep scaling that. I definitely am imagined a day where maybe that's a little hard, but right now we've been able to do that. And that's sort of what we tell clients too. That's why we're different than
Yeah, it's
other
kind of your
agencies.
superpower too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't been able we haven't deviated from that. And sometimes it means that, you know, we we tell clients know this too, we're very transparent. It could be that, my creative partner knows a copywriter who works at a B2B agency. That's his day job, but it's the same client, knows it inside and out like the back of his hand, and just really wants to work on something else. So this person could moonlight for us, and we're
Mm,
okay with that, so long as that talent. There's no stipulation you know, in their employee guidelines that prevents them. Um, so for us, it's just keeping true to the 2 degrees, and then being an outlet for people. Again, whether it is that you are a mom and you have limited time, or you're already at a job and it's just not really, you're fine there, but you don't want to take the risk, but you need some creative outlet. I think that's what's attractive for talent, um, that we can draw from. And I don't think that that would deplete. I feel like that's just in our business. I'm sure you can name right now a few people that are unhappy with where they are, but
Always.
And what is it called? Quietly quitting. So they're just kind of
Quiet
like
quitting,
clocking it
yeah.
in.
Yep.
Um,
That's
uh,
funny.
so
You're hiring Norman in the basement with his stapler on Office Space.
well, I don't know if he had talent, but yeah.
I love it. So on the 2 degrees thing, is it people that you and your creative partner have actually worked with, or people you've gotten to know, like there's a personal relationship, essentially, like a long-term personal relationship?
It could be both those.
Mhm.
It could be that there is somebody that we've worked with that person highly refers because they've worked with them. So that's the
2 degree.
extent. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's really it.
I like that. And I imagine also, you've worked with so many partners over the years
Mhm.
too. I imagine there's probably ways nowadays more than ever where you can kind of plug in a capability through a partnership very easily
100%.
now too, right?
Yes. And
Okay.
we're very transparent about that too. And one of the things is we all know that everybody is trying to figure out AI and everybody's using maybe some of the same things and it's just about how you use it. Um, so, when it comes to that, if there's a partner that we can tap into that's already kind of vetted certain things, that helps us out from a speed to market on certain platforms. But we're also, it's kind of a necessary evil. I, you know, I always like to bring up charts that show how much water and energy is being used to cool down all these structures when you use AI. So that's important for me. But again, it's trying to figure out the right way to be a future forward business. But the partners, like you said, really help us as a smaller agency really bring to bear the things that maybe bigger kind of clients would need. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's funny. We almost made it through a 1 hour podcast without saying the word
I
AI.
know. I'm sorry.
No, no, totally. I think it's unavoidable, and I think a lot of the, um, I don't know. It's weird. It's right. It's like, okay, we're in this kind of like, we care about the environment, time, and like renewables and all this stuff, and then overnight, all of a sudden, it's like build nuclear plants. Um, uh, I was listening to a news report that mentioned that the estimates are that uh, the energy requirements of AI in 5 years will require 160% of our current energy production, like in America. So let's just say like none of us are turning the lights on in our house. None of us are charging our Teslas. Like basically America is not using any energy except what it's going to take to power the AI industry, and that's 160% of the capacity that we have now. And we're sadly in America only building 2% capacity every single year. Another crazy thing that I learned by doing a search on AI, which I almost feel bad about it, but for every 4 searches on ChatGPT, that's the same amount of carbon that it takes to create a business card. So like, I don't know why I searched that one time, but just like, I think, you know what I think it was? I think it was like some like, I really love business cards. I don't know about you. Like,
Oh, we
I
have them
know,
still.
oh, good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. Like only one of my clients had given me a business card, but I love them. And they're the business card I give out everywhere. So good for them. But I think business cards are a few things to me. It's like, there's cardstock, there's texture, there's the creative challenge of how do you fit your brand identity into this little square, and there's font, and I just think it's and I don't know, I've just always enjoyed, maybe it's because I've always been a sales guy and collecting and distributing business cards, but I'm a big fan, and I think a young person in a pitch, when I like handed out my business cards, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like how do you have business cards? That's so bad for the environment." And then I think I sent them an email. I said, The next time you do 4 ChatGPT searches, you've essentially printed my business card, being a smart ass, of course.
I love that you told that story because I was meeting my my sister and her son, my nephew, for a dinner, and I had to just, they came early and I had to just finish one more email, and it was like taking me a little bit longer. So I'm sitting there and my nephew's like sitting next to me and he's watching me. He's like, Aunt Lee, why don't you just use ChatGPT to write? And I was like, first of all, I know how to write emails. I mean, if I'm going to use ChatGPT for something and it's not going to be to write an email, he's like, but it could help you. And I was like, but do you not understand how much water is going to be used for me just to like have it help me? It's not necessary. And he just didn't, because AI is now part of his world. I don't think that the education part of it has happened where, like, do you recycle? Do you believe in recycling? And he said, yes. And then I pulled up a website and I was like, look at how much energy. And there was this great, infographic that showed how much energy is required for simple things like you're saying, like printing a business card or writing an email or doing this. And he just didn't realize it. So I was like, next time you do something, just think, could you just do it yourself? Like, do you really need assistance? Could you just save that energy for something bigger or better? So.
Oh man. Well, I think I don't think we'll solve that problem on this podcast today, but something to be thinking about. But I will say I'm very happy that this year has been the beginning of the year at CES. 100% of the conversations were about AI. It was basically the Consumer Electronics Show of AI. By the time I got to Possible in mid-year in Miami, it was about 50-50. 50% was about AI, but 50% was about investing in brand and creativity. And I think creativity and the idea, I think AI is creating the ability to launch challenger brands so fast and so quick now.
Yep.
That the only thing that matters now is brand. And the only thing that matters now is storytelling. The only differentiator is being good at our trade craft. So I'm a big optimist in the robots not taking our jobs. I always say as a sales guy, they'll never take you to a steak dinner or a Lakers game. So, we shall see. But,
I love that you said that. Just because I like long live the zero-click search that ChatGPT or Copilot has enabled, where maybe we'll get out of brands and clients being so dependent on feeling like search engine advertising, the traditional, is the end all be all, because right now, that's not where it's at. But it blows my mind just how much money is still being poured into old school search. But back to what you said, it's going to be all about the brands that have the right reviews, the right content that will appear in an answer when you ask a question. And there are no search ads, and it's not about clicking because you got the information that you feel is validated by AI.
Totally. So, yeah, it definitely search is in trouble. I go to ChatGPT 50% of the time now instead of Google, and I only think it's going to continue to get better. We'll see what happens when they decide to monetize it, because then it's like, oh, okay, well, now it doesn't feel as pure anymore, even though it's totally not pure. But
don't give them any ideas.
Exactly. Well, Lee, thanks so much. It was so fun to catch up with you. I've always enjoyed, the time that we've been able to spend together when I visited you guys and brought you coffees in Austin and all that good stuff. So I will look forward to being able to do that again next time I'm out your way. If you could point my audience to either a place to learn more about Stiletto Collective or to connect with you directly, where do you want to send folks?
Yeah, our website, stilettocollective.com, or find us on Instagram at Stiletto Collective.
All right, awesome. Well, for everybody who is tuning in at home, if this is the first time you've seen the show, don't forget to give us a follow or a subscribe so you can see more conversations with agency leaders like Lee in the future. If you give us an honest review, that's how we find a larger audience organically. And last but not least, if you know a talent out there who you think might be a good addition to the Stiletto Collective, or a brand marketer who you think would benefit from the conversation that I had with Lee today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, we'll go ahead and let you go. And we'll see you again next week.